Before she knew it, Lisa was sobbing. Images of Ellen in the driveway laughing and Ellen in the hospital dying alternately blurred and focused in her memory. It was like looking at those 3D pictures hidden in two-dimensional drawings. It was only when you stopped trying to see them that they rose off the page, sudden and surreal. The young man turned from the window. Look, he began when he saw she was crying. He shifted awkwardly, obviously unsure what he should do. I'm sorry if he trailed off. She shook her head. No, it's nothing, she choked. Then she sobbed even harder. Dr. Dan had warned her there would be times like this, times during her rehabilitation when the physical damage to her body would unexpectedly trigger a release of raw emotion. It was like wires crossing, he told her. Two completely unrelated things would suddenly connect and the floodgates would open. Lisa had thought he'd been speaking metaphorically at the time, but trying now to wipe away her tears with the sleeve of her robe, she was no longer sure that was true. A tissue appeared under her nose. She looked up and saw the young man holding a Kleenex box he'd taken from the table by the window. Here, he said, and something about the gesture, the contrast of the soft tissue in his large, rough hands, touched her. Thanks, she said. So how'd today go? Colville asked when Reef climbed into the truck. Jesus, was every day going to be like this? 2 seconds in the truck and already the third degree. Reef hated the thought of taking the bus back and forth, but it beat being grilled each afternoon by Constable Colville. He sighed, slumped back in the seat. Okay, he said finally. Just okay? Christ almighty. Reef ignored him and stared out the window. Cyclists and skateboarders were out in full force, their lithe bodies sweeping past them in the heavy traffic. Reef thought about bikes, thought about never having had one of his own. He'd stolen a few over the years, of course, ridden them a day or two before ditching them. But it wasn't something you could enjoy. You always had to be watching for cops, could never just forget everything and pedal. The wind tugging at you, pulling everything out and away. Colville steered the pickup expertly through traffic, stopping at a crosswalk to let two small children and a woman pushing a stroller cross the street. Reef watched as the woman maneuvered the stroller down off the sidewalk. The two children with her each placed a hand on the stroller, one on either side, and the procession moved slowly but purposefully across in front of them. When they reached the other side, the woman knelt down and said something to the children, then kissed the both of them, and Reef remembered how he had knelt by the wheelchair in the sixth-floor lounge. It had been weird how, in the middle of all that laughing, the girl had started to cry, and not just a few sniffles. Once she'd got started, the sniffles had become sobs, her shoulders shaking like branches on a windy day, and he'd wanted to leave her there. Call the nurse to come deal with that shit. Tell her it wasn't his job to babysit loonies who belly laughed one moment and then bawled the next. But he hadn't. Had instead found the Kleenex and given it to her, listened to her apologize over and over, and then out of nowhere began to talk about her sister. She'd cried even harder then, telling between sobs what it was like to watch the cancer eat her sister alive. And he'd said without even thinking, wasn't it more like watching someone burn up, watching the flame become a flicker, then go out altogether? And she looked at him and nodded, asked him how he knew, and he'd begun talking about Nan, about what she'd been like before, about the first signs that something wasn't right, about the doctors and the drugs and the hospitals and the funeral home. She'd known that funeral home, Prull's on Pinehurst, had sat in the same slumber room with her sister, had watched people come in and go out, get on with their lives while she'd left so much of hers behind. He told her about the service, how it was all words and nothing at all like his grandmother, and she told him how the music had been the only comfort, Ellen's favorite songs piped through a PA system from a portable CD player. And he told her about the gravesite, the casket suspended by straps over a gaping hole, and she told him about how wrong it all was, how they made all the mud look clean, the bright green of the fake grass carpet hiding the dirt that would seal her sister in. And he told her about the feel of that dirt in his hand, how he'd ground it under his fingernails before dropping it into the hole. Needing somehow to have even this much of his grandmother left behind, and she told him how she had done the same, and refused to let it all slip from her fingers, had carried some back with her in the car. They had talked all afternoon. And when Carly had come to collect them, he'd still been talking. He looked now at the young mother bent over the stroller, turned to watch as the scene slid by, still looking out the window. He surprised himself by saying, "It was a good day." Thankfully, Colville said nothing, let the moment be what it was.